Deep down, HR Chief Bill Mitchell disliked the new director of the firm. But it wasn't because he was young and lacked business acumen. It was because Chris Brown got his position by marrying the daughter of the company's founder. Frederick Wilson devoted his entire life to this firm and saw it grow into a thriving business. Unfortunately, the businessman died a year ago, and the company employees quickly realized that they were in for some changes. And they were right. As soon as the young, handsome Chris Brown appeared at the office, he started behaving like he owned the place and took the director's chair as if it was rightfully his. The change in leadership meant nothing to most employees, but it said a lot to Bill Mitchell. Chris immediately established his own set of rules at the company. Unfortunately, they weren't aimed at the development of the business, but at controlling everything that happened at the firm. Moreover, the new director didn't understand the intricacies of doing business and concluded several bad deals in a relatively short time, thus creating irreparable damage to the firm. The company profits plummeted, leading to wage cuts and wage arrears. Employees started expressing their displeasure, but Chris fired the most wayward ones back when he was just taking over the management, and the rest couldn't really do anything. Bill Mitchell was the only one who tried to explain to the new director how his approach wasn't going to work and would sooner or later lead the company into bankruptcy. But Chris had his own opinion on the matter, and it was very different from that of the head of the HR department. If anyone is unhappy with their job, they are free to quit at any moment. Sure, they won't get severance pay and all the other benefits, but it's up to them. Let them get out of here and forget the way to my office, said the young director. Mr. Brown, sir, you can't do that. A lot of the employees have already quit, actually. At this rate, there will soon be no one to keep the business going, Bill objected. But Chris didn't care at all. It seemed that he had his own plans for the company, which he inherited from his late father-in-law. At the same time, he never talked to his wife, Jessica, about his problems at work and pretended that everything was fine. They met 2 years ago in a cafe and immediately felt a strong mutual attraction. Chris knew how to court women and did so masterfully as he immediately turned Jessica's head. Frederick Wilson was already terminally ill at the time. He knew that he had very little time left. Therefore, when a man appeared in his daughter's life, he didn't stand in the way of their relationship. Although, frankly, the elderly businessman disliked Chris from the moment they met. Darling, I raised you on my own after your mother died. It was difficult, but I managed. Now I'm sick, and you need a strong shoulder to lean on. That's true, but be careful with Chris. Maybe he's actually a good person, but his behavior makes me suspicious, Frederick Wilson said. Daddy, please focus on your disease. I'm absolutely sure you'll get better, Jessica said with tears in her eyes. But sadly, a miracle wasn't in the cards for Mr. Wilson, and the elderly businessman died a week after his daughter's wedding. Then came Chris Brown's finest hour. He got everything that he could have ever dreamed of. Unfortunately, all that man knew to do well was spend his father-in-law's money, which his wife got as inheritance. Jessica was used to trusting her husband and refused to believe any rumors about him. Therefore, even when her father's firm started having problems, she didn't start a fight, but asked Chris for one favor instead. Honey, I want to go to Miami with my friends for a week, to have some rest in the sun by the sea. You know the drill. We haven't seen each other for so long. Chris pretended to be hurt by his wife's words and gave his consent with ostentatious reluctance. In fact, the man couldn't be happier with this turn of events. Everything's going perfectly. I couldn't have been luckier, the director thought, rubbing his hands together. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Jessica packed her things and went on a short trip to the warm beaches of Miami. After his wife left town, Chris felt the freedom that he didn't know before. And the first ones to feel it were the company employees, who had long been dissatisfied with salary delays and the lack of bonuses. At about the same time, a new cleaning lady appeared in the office who came to replace her retired predecessor. Surprisingly, she agreed to work for a very low wage, which greatly surprised the head of the HR department, Bill Mitchell. But most of all, the young employee was shocked by the way the cleaning lady looked. She seemed to be about 40, but she could be even older. Amanda's clothes looked old and tasteless, suggesting that they were purchased at a thrift store or a flea market. Her long and unkempt hair fell on her face, as if hiding it from everyone around her. But the worst part about her appearance was her huge hump, which immediately caught the man's eye. Amanda's peculiarity made her look like the wife of Quasimodo from the world-famous Hugo novel. Due to her repulsive appearance, the new cleaning lady immediately became the object of ridicule for most of the office staff. But only Bill Mitchell was nice to the unfortunate woman, who was doomed to eternal suffering and humiliation because of her hump. Meanwhile, Amanda herself didn't pay any attention to the bullying and worked tirelessly with her rag and her mop. It seemed that she never got tired, and the hump on her back didn't even prevent her from doing a great job. In about a week, she made the office look perfectly clean, which couldn't go unnoticed by the company's employees. Even Chris Brown smiled smugly and said to the head of the HR department, "Well, you see, Bill, you didn't believe that someone could work for such a small salary. Trust me, that's not even the limit yet." The director smiled and went into his office, where a young assistant, who looked like a model from the cover of a famous men's magazine, was waiting for him. Chris had hired Barbara rather recently, but his motives definitely had nothing to do with work. The impotent beauty showed up at the office whenever she felt like it, and clearly enjoyed some privileges that other employees didn't get. Seeing the humpbacked cleaning lady, Barbara made fun of her in front of everyone, humiliating someone else to assert herself, yet again. Amanda only pursed her lips in response and started cleaning the floors even more zealously than before. After that incident, the humpbacked cleaning lady tried to stay away from Barbara. Meanwhile, the horrible assistant saw it as her victory and continued to behave as if she owned the place. That was partly due to the patronage of the young director of the company. The other employees rumored that the two were having an affair. One day, Amanda involuntarily overheard a strange conversation between Chris and his assistant while cleaning the director's office. "Honey, when are we going to move in together? How long are we supposed to hide out in cheap motels?" Barbara asked, sounding hurt. Chris seemed uncomfortable at first, but then he glanced at Amanda and relaxed. "Soon, my dear. You have to be patient. I'm just one deal away from ruining this company, and then we'll be incredibly rich," Chris replied with a smug smile. Amanda was so surprised she almost dropped the mop, but she managed to pull herself together in time so that no one noticed her true emotions. Neither the director nor the mistress noticed the cleaning lady's reaction and went on to discuss their plans for the future in great detail. Having finished cleaning the office, Amanda closed the door and went to see the head of the HR department, who had become her only friend at the office. "Mr. Mitchell, what's going to happen at the firm in the next few days? Why is everyone talking about some changes?" the cleaning lady asked cautiously. Bill looked surprised, but answered, "I thought everyone knew. There are important business negotiations scheduled for tomorrow. The fate of this company pretty much depends on their outcome." Amanda frowned, but declined to comment further. She understood perfectly well that she had no right to discuss the director of the company with anyone else. Moreover, she had to make sure that the office was completely clean before the arrival of the important guests, so she decided to wash the floors once again, as well as check the windows for dust. The next morning, most of the employees came to work a little earlier than usual. There was noticeable tension at the office, caused by the upcoming negotiations. Soon, the representatives of the partner firm arrived. Chris Brown received them in his office. Many of the employees were well aware of the fact that the future depended on the results of the negotiations and were thus feeling rather anxious. Chris Brown was the only one who wasn't worried, since he knew exactly what was going to happen. He intended to conclude a bad deal in order to ruin his father-in-law's firm and thereby hide the fact that he'd been stealing from the company. However, when all that was left to do was for Chris to sign one last document, Amanda unexpectedly entered the office and started mopping the floors as if nothing was going on. "Hey, what are you doing, you filthy cleaner? Get out of here, now! We're in the middle of an important meeting here," Chris shouted, getting up from the table. To the great surprise of the young director, Amanda didn't seem the least bit fazed and clearly wasn't about to leave his office. Instead, she suddenly straightened up, making a subtle movement with her hand, then threw off the false hump from her back. Then, just as easily, Amanda took off her wig and used the handkerchief from her pocket to wipe the makeup off her face. Chris instinctively recoiled in surprise and hid his face in his hands. It was Jessica, the director's wife, who was standing in front of him, even though she was supposed to be enjoying herself in Miami at the time. "Well, hello, hubby. So you wanted to bankrupt my dad's firm, take the money, and run away with your mistress. I have to disappoint you. That's not going to happen. The lawyers are already working on making sure that you're left with nothing," said Jessica, enjoying the effect. She'd long been getting signals that things weren't going as smoothly at her father's firm as Chris claimed. Therefore, Jessica decided to see what was going on. To do that, she decided to dress up and show up at the office with a false hump, pretending to be someone else. The woman dreamed of becoming an actress as a child, and now she got to have her first performance, which she was flawless at. When Chris realized that it was all over, he left the office without uttering a single word. Barbara, his mistress, who doubled as the assistant, quietly followed him. It was all over for the young director, and each of the company employees knew it. Jessica appointed Bill Mitchell for the position of the director because he'd proven his loyalty to the company and devotion to the principles that guided the late Frederick Wilson. With his appointment, the company employees felt like they were part of a great team once again. They felt appreciated and taken care of. Jessica divorced Chris Brown, despite his tearful pleas and apologies. A new life was awaiting the rich heiress, in which there would be no more lies and deceit, but would definitely be true love and mutual respect with her new life partner.